Hello everyone, in today's video we're going to get started on a brief series dealing with high altitude flight. And this is one of those things that I forget that I take for granted. The fact that when we climb up to high altitudes, it's typically in an airliner, we're typically just going to be kind of sitting up there at high altitude and not doing anything too crazy. But the reality is there's a lot going on at altitude, and we're going to be exploring that in a couple different videos. This video, of course, is going to be dedicated to how do we get there and sort of what are sort of the implications. Let's go ahead and get started. So we have the F-18 today. The reason I've chosen this aircraft for this purpose is because it's perfect for demonstrating a lot of the things that you see happen at a much more minor level when you're dealing with aircraft that aren't necessarily as high performance, let's say. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a good old-fashioned standard takeoff. I'm not burning anything on the afterburners today. I just don't need to. There you go, about 145. You have to about 10 seconds to learn how to fly any fighter jet, and that's always right when you get in the air here. All right, we're going to go ahead and now pitch up. So much for fly-by-wire. That should have been a little bit smoother than that, but it's okay. So I'm going to go ahead and let go of the controls right now, and I'll let our aircraft go ahead and climb. So there's a couple different things we're going to be taking a look at today, and of course we're going to see this across our series. The first one, of course, is going to be angle of attack, which is going to be referring to how much of a bite of the air our airplane is currently taking out of the sky. Next, we're going to be taking a look at is Mach number. This is going to be the percentage of the speed of sound that we're currently traveling at. Next one, of course, is going to be our indicated airspeed. Now, this is going to be the speed the aircraft feels like it's flying at. Now, these three numbers are going to be very important to us as we try to start discovering why high-altitude flight is a little different than low-altitude flight. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and level myself off here. We've got ourselves about 4,000 feet or so, which is plenty of altitude to demonstrate this point. And what we're going to do is we're going to do some really basic maneuvers at about 250 knots indicated. So I'm just going to let the plane kind of slowly wiggle down. Also, flight people, please, you do not need to start my default view like this. There's no reason to do that. Let me look out the window the way that I want to look out the window. So what we have here is about 260 knots or about 4,000 feet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and execute some really basic maneuvers. Now you're sitting here going, oh, I thought we were doing a high altitude flight, and you're showing us how to get up there. What are you doing? Well, let me show you. So I'm going to go ahead and tip the plane over, and as far as control strict deflection goes, I'll go ahead and show you. That's how far I'm moving the stick right now. Yes, I am moving the stick. I'll actually bring it back to neutral. Notice the amount of stick effort it takes me to get this. I believe that might be a little unrealistic, not going to lie. I'm pretty sure it's not that sensitive. That would be pretty brutal. Of course, if I want to kick the stick all the way over, you can enjoy a nice little kind of roll like that. So we'll go ahead and put ourselves on a little knife edge here. We've already lost quite a few speed. I'm going to go ahead and bring in a little bit of power here to kind of help us get back up to speed. And we're just going to enjoy a nice, gentle, steep turn here. So, let's go ahead and bring in a little more power here. Come on. Come on. Man, 250 knots is painful to turn at here. There we go, 250. Let's go ahead and pull that stick back. And we're just going to try to somehow do this. And let's see what we notice. Let's see here. We're doing about 250 indicated. Now you can see we're pulling about 2.2 Gs. Mach number is about 0.43. And my angle of attack is not high. Well, one of the things you're probably observing is as my angle of attack increases, you're probably observing that my airspeed also decreases with it. As a matter of fact, if I pull back a little tiny bit more, notice I got a little bit more Gs, but look what happened to my airspeed. It has bled out. Now, if you're curious what my current power settings are, we're at maximum military right now. So we're pretty much stomping on this thing. Now, if I were to go ahead and kick on the afterburners, give us a little bit more thrust, you'll notice, I'll go ahead and let this kind of cancel out a little bit here. There we go. Now let's see how tight we can pull this. Ooh, look at that. Our angle of attack went up about 1.5 degrees. Yeah, I actually can pull back. And you can see we're getting about 4 Gs right now, which is almost double what we were getting just a moment ago. So let's go ahead and level ourselves off here. And you can see exactly just how profound that is. Now, the question is how do we get to high altitude? And that's, of course, going to be sort of interesting for us because we need to be able to get up there without increasing our angle of attack substantially. Let me show you what happens when the angle of attack, especially on big swept-wing planes, gets kind of high. So I'm going to go ahead and slow the plane down. We're going to get down to a really impolite kind of angle of attack here. That's about 28 degrees right there. I'm going to go ahead and give it full throttle. And if you observe, the aircraft is not really accelerating. As a matter of fact, I'm pancaking right now. So if I let the angle of attack drop, you'll notice the aircraft continues until it almost smacks into the ground, and I end up basically running in. Now, you'll notice when the angle of attack of this aircraft was very high, we had very little acceleration. Correction, we had no acceleration. As a matter of fact, I just did a bunch of training about low-altitude inverted flat spins. There we go. We got to get a little more air over this wing. Hey, look at that. So as a matter of fact, when we do that, you can see that the angle of attack basically murdered our climb ability as well as our accelerating ability. Now put all these things together in your head for a second, and let's see what we have to do. So to get this plane up to high altitude, we're going to have to give us as much power as we can because we need excess power. We're going to have to make sure we minimize the drag of the aircraft. And we're also, of course, while we're doing all that, having to take into account the fact that my jet engine is going to perform worse as we progressively get higher and higher. Now, when you put those three things together, you realize that the key to climbing comes in speed. For those of you who are familiar with the lift equation, speed squared times air density times your wing area times your coefficient of lift, which is a function of angle of attack, gets you your ability to actually get lift. So for different aircraft, they have different sweet speeds to climb at. The one speed we could not climb at, of course, would be 250 because we'd basically be sitting there tanking the whole time because of all that induced drag. Different airplanes are different. Most military aircraft climb at a specific speed up to a certain altitude, then they switch up to a specific Mach number. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and try that out. Now, the specific climb speed for this aircraft can be achieved at 350 until we cross 0.78, or if we prefer, if we really need to get up in a hurry, we can actually climb right up to our maximum Mach and then do what they call a zoom climb. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at the first method first. So I'm going to go ahead and push my throttle all the way forward. I'm going to go ahead and pull my nose up. And what we're going to do is we're going to maintain as close to 350 knots as we can until my Mach exceeds 0.8. So I'm going to go ahead and let the nose come down just a little bit. Now you can see this is a full afterburner now. There we go. Now we can get a little bit of climb out of this thing. Now notice here, as I'm starting to pitch up, you'll see that my indicated airspeed, which is a function of air density and actual speed, is actually going to change. So what I'm going to have to do as I start to climb here is I'm actually going to have to push forward on the stick in order to reduce how much basically we're running out of energy here as the air gets thin. So we're just going to maintain this, and you can see we're holding about 344. I can actually push the stick down a little tiny bit faster here. And you can also observe the fact that we're not full gravity right now. We're actually sitting at about 0.7. We're slowly floating, not floating out of our seats, but we're definitely reduced. So we're about 0.348 right now, and you can see we're slowly climbing. We're at 0.68 on the Mach number. We're crossing through about 16,000 feet here. And again, we're just going to maintain this until we get to the point where we're going to be hitting our maximum Mach for our basically climb purposes. All right, 343, we're losing speed here. Again, air is getting thinner, and it will get very thin very quickly. So we have to be very mindful of this during climbs like this. Now we'll go ahead and let that nose come down. You can see my Mach number is already up to 0.75. We have 0.6 to go, or 0.05 to go, thank you. And we're almost up there, 0.77, 0.78, and 0.79. There it is. That is going to be our climb Mach now. And we're transitioning between using Mach to using my speed. From the speed to Mach, rather. So right now I'm interested in keeping a constant Mach. So I notice my Mach number there drifted down a little bit. I'm just going to pick the nose up just a tiny bit and let it go ahead and climb. Which one of the things that you'll probably observe is you've been watching my altitude and my vertical speed indicator climb. You probably observed that I've been maintaining pretty darn close to the same climb speed this entire time. It's not until you get over 30,000 that you're really going to be starting to feel the effects of the thinner air. But you can see right now we're holding 0.8 perfectly, more or less. Again, I haven't had a lot of practice with this one. And we're starting to watch my indicated airspeed drift downward. Notice we're still about the same Mach, but notice my indicated airspeed has gone down substantially. You can see it's at 285, even though we're still almost the speed of sound right now. Now notice I'm really having to nose over, even though we're at full burner, in order to maintain that constant Mach. But notice my angle of attack hasn't really changed the entire climb. As a matter of fact, on many of these style climbs, you maintain a constant angle of attack in order to get to the altitude you want to get to. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start nosing over a little bit. We're about where I want to be. We just crossed the high clouds there. And we're just going to enjoy it. I'm going to hold about 0.82, and we're going to just slowly accelerate as I get up to my about 35,000 feet. And we're going to overshoot it a little bit, but that's all right. And there we are, 35,000 feet. Now, if you're sitting there with a stopwatch, you see that I did a pretty darn good job. We got ourselves up to altitude fairly well. I was sitting there, I can let go of the controls. There wasn't a lot of drama during that climb. I basically just went kind of a thing like that. And here I am, sitting at a very comfortable speed, and I'm sitting at a comfortable altitude. What would we do if we were in a bigger hurry, though? Enter the zoom climb. So what we're going to do is we're going to attempt to minimize my angle of attack. The best way to do that for us, of course, is to fly at the highest speed we actually can without damaging the airframe, and as well as not wasting too much energy from things like transonic drag. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and give it full thrust here. I'm going to go ahead and wait for this thing to start rolling. There it goes. Kill the brake. Let's give it some fire. Off we go. How about a little fire, Scarecrow? Just like all fighters, you don't know how to fly them until the first time you actually pull back on the stick here. Give it a little tug. Oh my god, it's such an F-18. And what I'm going to do this time is I'm going to build up my zoom. So to build a zoom climb here, we're just going to get ourselves a little bit of altitude, and we're going to get ourselves as close as we can to 0.9 that we can with our Mach number at low altitude. Then we're going to use a combination of momentum as well as my super duper 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 low angle of attack to basically power my way up there. So it's going to take us a minute to build up the speed. Nice thing about an F-18 is it does get going pretty quick here. That's 0.74 in the Mach number there. We're burning fuel like you would not believe right now. There's 0.81. 0.83, 0.84. Basically, you've just let go of the stick here. 0.87, that's enough. Going up. And this is what we do. So now we're going to go back to playing the same constant Mach game that you saw before. But one of the advantages is when we were at lower altitude here, we were able to take advantage of that thicker air in order to build up more speed. Remember, as we climb, we're going to be at a significant handicap as far as being able to build speed because we just have less thrust available. Now, the nice thing with altitude, of course, is we start getting the benefit of thinner air. Now, one of the things you're probably observing here is my climb rate is stupendous. We averaged about 15,000 last time. Now we're punching about 20,000 feet, and I'm almost already ready to climb the 20,000 feet mark. Now, all I'm doing is doing the same strategy as I used before. I'm using a constant Mach climb. You can see I'm sitting right at 0.9. Now, some of you, of course, might say, why don't you just go right up to 1.0? Wouldn't that just be better, kind of a thing? Well, the problem is, as we get closer to the speed of sound, all that nasty drag and Mach buffet and all that stuff is going to start kind of eating away at all our efforts here. So we basically want to get as close as we can without going over. But notice, my angle of attack is 0.8 or 0.9 right now. There is basically no drag on this aircraft. Let's be realistic. There's a ton of drag on this aircraft. It's an F-18. But notice that climb that we did earlier, which was a very competent, very effective, very basically super fast climb, we have absolutely surpassed. And it's just at 30,000 feet that we're starting to feel that sort of basically that thinning of the air and the lack of thrust that's going to be impacting our performance here. So I'm going to go ahead and start nosing over. You can see we're losing quite a bit here. I'm at 0.85. And it's going to be much more challenging to go ahead and maintain this ridiculously high rate of climb here. And again, I did nothing different except build up that little zoom to minimize my angle of attack. Now notice my angle of attack is chilling around 1.6, 1.7 units right now, and that's definitely eating me up here. Go ahead and nose over. And we're going to overshoot pretty bad here, but that's okay. And that's it. And you notice, that's it. Look at how fast we were able to get altitude. Now you're probably saying, hey, I wanted to watch this video and learn a little bit about airliners. How does this affect me? The key thing with airliners is you have to stay under 250, under 10,000 feet. But once you cross that threshold, putting yourself right up to the closest, highest Mach your plane can manage at full throttle is going to get you up as fast as possible. Next video, we're going to be taking a look at what it's like to handle at these altitudes and why it's so much more challenging. Enjoy.